Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, members and guests, to the February 22nd, 2023 Council meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised. Please ensure your phones are on silent mode. For those attending virtually, please mute yourself when not speaking. When called upon to speak, turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Staff in attendance, please use the Microsoft Teams hand raised feature icon to be called upon and remove it after you're finished speaking. With that, I call the February 22nd, 2023 regular council meeting to order. We've added a new addition to our meetings for clarity, so we're going to do a bit of a roll call, and I'd just like to confirm that everyone is in attendance today. This is something that we'll begin to do, especially with virtual attendance, to ensure that we're recording everyone's attendance appropriately and not adding them as absent or in attendance when they're not. With that being said, we have approval of the agenda. We have a couple amendments to the agenda. So the first up is the January 25th council meeting, open and closed. They've been amended to reflect that Councillor Huffman was in attendance and Councillor Van Passen was absent from the meeting. That the resolutions regarding the appointments to the Heritage Committee were amended to reflect the appointed members in both the open and closed minutes for January 25th. And the addition of bylaws 8Z 2023 and 11Z 2023. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Vanendrishi, seconded by Councillor Shelley. All in favor? Carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to remind Council that I did at our Council and Committee meeting declare a pecuniary interest in potential conflict with the successful bid on the Delhi Kinsman Pool renovations.
Thank you for the reminder. Not seeing any others. We're going to move along to our early closed session item. I'm looking for a motion to enter closed session that at 1:03 p.m. to discuss litigation update Ward 1 pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I believe we're estimated to be 1 hour. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I have a motion to reconvene in open session at 2:13 p.m. We have only provided direction on the staff report. No further actions being reported at this time. So mover and seconder, open session. Councillor Vanden Driesch and seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Consent items. It wasn't just you. Consent items. We have 4 consent items today. Does any committee member wish to pull any additional items for further discussion?
There's, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's 2 that are already documented, right, that are being
Yeah.
pulled? Okay, so I just want to make sure we brought our attention to those.
Police Service Board meeting, and Councillor Van Passen has a section of the resolution from previous minute. Okay, seeing nothing else, that's wonderful. Can I have a motion to approve consent item 5.1 to 5.4 as presented? Moved by Councillor Vanden Driesch, seconded by Councillor Berry. All those in favor? Carried. We have 2 deputations today. Both are from Mr. John Valley. I would ask council to accept the deputation for information after he's finished speaking. Should committee wish to direct staff to bring back a report on any of the matters for further discussion, that can occur following both of the deputations. So with that, we'll move on to 6.1, which is agenda item 10.2.1, development application ZNPL 2022-325, 210 Argyle Street, Simcoe, CD 23014. And we'll pass it over to Mr. Valley for 5 minutes. Do you have slides for us today? Okay. Whenever you're ready, take it away. 5 minutes.
That's fantastic. Yes, it's great. No, it's not. Okay, there we go. Mayor Martin and members of council, thank you very much. My name is John Valley. I am with G. Douglas Valley Limited. We are consulting engineers, we're architects, and we're land use planners. And we're here to talk to you today about 210 Argyle Street. So I believe everyone knows about this application. Very straightforward. It's a 6-unit condominium. And we're simply asking that it be approved through the zoning. I don't think there's anyone who has expressed any concerns with the zoning and what's being proposed here. We have had almost no comment from the neighbors. So my only comment to you today is on process. And my concern is the requirement for a holding provision on the zoning. We believe that the zoning can be approved today without the use of a holding zone. And I'll tell you why. As you know, under the new legislation, any development which is less than 10 units cannot be subject to site plan control. And what we believe is happening here in one form or another is that the holding provision is being used somewhat like site plan control. Holding provisions were provided to us on Wednesday, did not contain all these conditions. All of a sudden on Tuesday, we have to provide stormwater management reports. We have to provide flow reports. We have to provide grading and drainage and all these kinds of things. So we believe that those are in somewhat de facto site plan approval items that perhaps are not really appropriate. So if we look at these one at a time, the first condition is the general manager has to confirm that sewer and water capacity is available and allocated. We're talking about 6 houses. I'm quite sure that your general manager of engineering can tell you today that yes, we have capacity for 6 more houses in Simcoe. If we were talking 600, it might be a little different story, but we're talking about 6 houses. Normally, this zoning provision would come along and then that release and confirmation of capacity would happen at the site plan stage or some other stage, a development agreement stage, but those won't be occurring here because there is no site plan approval. So we simply say that can be waived right here and today. The second requirement is that the general manager of engineering infrastructure confirm that there is sufficient conveyance capacity in the sewers. What we have here is a report from RV Anderson. This is Norfolk County's consultant that you hire. The developer pays for it, but you hire this consultant. And they've given us this report. This one's based on water modeling. And I'll read you the closing line. The existing water distribution system is adequate to provide the required pressure and fire flow to the proposed development located at 210 Argyle Street. Additionally, the proposed development would not impact the performance of the distribution system negatively. So that report has already been done. This is dated. I'll give that to Councillor Berry so we can just make sure I'm not lying to council. That was submitted to staff in December 23 by your own consultant. Therefore, that condition has already been cleared. Similarly, on the sanitary side, same company, same story, same date. The proposed development at 210 Argyle is expected to increase the peak flow by 0.47 liters per second. Hydraulic modeling indicates the existing sanitary sewer collection system has sufficient capacity to convey the design peak flows to the sewage plant. And I'll let my friend Chris Passon make sure that we're not doing anything that's not in line. So these studies have already been done. They've been sitting on staff's desks since before Christmas. I don't see why there's any reason to have those as an extra condition to hold up development on another round. The third one is that they've asked for a stormwater management report. Well, here's our report dated September 7th of 2002. This is our stormwater management report. This is what was asked for. This had to be provided as part of the zoning application package. So it's been submitted. It formed part of our complete application. The information is all in here. It's not a very long read. No reason why this can be reviewed by today. It's 6 pages, including the signature page. So there's not really much here. My point is, all this information's already been provided. There's no reason to provide another layer of red tape for this matter to have to come back to council again for you guys to sign off. You could simply approve the zoning, eliminate the holding, and our friends, our clients can go off and get a building permit from Mr. Enslin and get this thing built this summer. That is all I have to say, and someone tells me there might be a couple questions.
Perfect timing.
Thank you.
Okay, questions for Mr. Valley? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on this, Mr. Valley, the reports you indicated for water and sewer, were they done for the whole of, like this was done not just for your project? These were done for the county at the time?
Through the mayor, the way this works is RV Anderson has a model for Simcoe.
Okay.
That they maintain, and it has all the flows, all the demands, and it's your complete system. Every time a land development comes forward, RVA is hired to insert that development into the overall model. They then run the model and see what impacts it has on community wide.
So do you ask for that, or does the county do that for you?
We have to submit to engineering staff. Engineering staff then go to RVA. RVA says this is going to cost $4,000. Our client writes a check to Norfolk for $4,000. RVA does the work and then sends the report to county staff, and county staff, we just got these yesterday. That's how it works.
Thank you.
Councillor Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, John, for your presentation. John, that lot has some, fairly mature trees on it. Will the bulk of those trees be able to be preserved with this development?
So certainly there's a lot of trees. A lot of the trees are actually on the adjacent lands, but we obviously want to preserve as many as we can. We've done an arborist study. Your team from your arborist department have been out. They've met with our arborist. They've met with the surveyor to be very clear on what trees are on whose property. There's been a report done, reviewed by your staff, and they recommend that what we're going to do is not going to have a negative impact on the trees.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, John, thank you for being here, and thank you for your presentation today. Can you just tell, when did this start? When did you start this process in terms of coming to Norfolk County to move this forward?
I don't have the exact date. Our project number starts with 20, which tells me it was in 2020 was when we started. This stormwater management report was submitted in September. There were a few delays in submitting because at the time the understanding was Norfolk was not accepting applications because of water shortage. But the client has been trying to get this going since late 2020.
Thank you. And so as of right now, the only thing that's holding us up is the holding provision.
Correct.
Councilor Van Passen.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've dealt with Mr. Valley a long time, and most of the time we disagree on things. But I think he brings some very valid points here. And I think there was a similar deputation to council not that long ago on a project at Port Dover. That was almost sort of based on that same thing, that the province changed some rules recently. And I guess the deputation is basically saying that, or questioning whether this is a backdoor method to implement site plan control when it shouldn't be used. And I just want to, have I got that about right? I know you've treaded very fine line in not saying that, but I can ask that question.
To the mayor, I think we're headed that direction, right? And this is the fear. I was talking in our office the other day and said this is going to be very interesting because we have this development. It's less than 10 lots. It's going to be interesting to see how Norfolk deals with this. The bet from around the table was they're going to put all these conditions on a holding provision and you're going to have to do everything you would have had to do under site plan. They're just going to call it something different. In this case, release the holding. On Wednesday, Mohammed Allen was good enough to send me a draft of this bylaw. And I went around the office saying, look, I was right. There's no conditions here that are requiring all these documents. That was on Wednesday. Then, get my day straight, yesterday, when I downloaded the document off the internet, all these conditions had been added since the draft that I'd had the week before, where we're asking for grading, drainage, stormwater, pipe capacities, all these things that start to smell like a duck, walk like a duck. I think it is a duck. This is something we're very concerned about. This is not just this project, and Brandon will be happy to support me here. I think we've got a number of these files coming forward. Some of them have been on the books here at Norfolk for over 2 years, stuck in the site plan approval process. And those clients are saying to me, and I'm saying to Brandon, should we pull them out of site plan control because they're only 8 units? We don't need site plan approval anymore. And what's it going to look like if we do that? What are you going to require from us to get a building permit? Staff's struggling to figure out that answer because there's a lot of change involved here. So our fear again is that we don't want to get into these situations where the province is trying to clear the path of the red tape for these little developments, trying to make it so we can get to construction quickly. And the last thing we'd hate to see is all those same requirements just come pouring back in through the back door.
I'm maybe going to ask, thank you for your explanation. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, but I'm going to ask council to maybe refrain, again, not maybe, to refrain from these types of questions because I think we're in, it is appropriate for us to be having them, especially with Mr. Valley, with his clients, and we want to reduce red tape and so on, but we are in a really unique position here where we have provincial legislation that has just come down. Our staff are trying to juggle and find ways to manage it, meet the timelines, have all of the departments get their information out so that we can still juggle our planning files and grow complete communities. But this just happened. And so I totally respect Mr. Valley's position and his client's position, and I thank you for bringing it to our attention. But what I don't want to have happen is a discussion where we're accusing our staff of finding loopholes or backhanded ways to add red tape or slow down work or create more work for themselves, because that's absolutely not the case. What we need to do as council and staff, and now we've just had this conversation, is take Mr. Valley's comments and find a way to ensure that what he's fearing is not going to happen. It sounds like you betted it on Norfolk County in your office instead of against us. So thank you for that vote of confidence. We hear what you're saying. Leave it with us, and let's not flush this out right now for all of the public and the media to jump on us. It is very normal that our planning department would be trying to juggle how to meet these new provincial timelines, and certainly they're gun shy about water in Fort Dover and other holding provisions. So let's empower our staff to not need the additional holding provisions that look and mimic site plan control and keep development rolling, but let's not do that here today. So with that, are there any further questions for Mr. Valley? Something?
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I agree with what you're saying at 100%. This is a huge shift in process without site plan control anymore. I think the point really, if you take one thing away from what I said, it's that the studies that are being asked for in this case are in my hand and have been sitting on staff's desk for some time. So they already have those studies. It seems ridiculous to have to get this approval and then resubmit this RVA report that came from the county, to have to resubmit it back to them to add to their workload, to then take us several months to get back to me and say, yeah, we agree with our own consultant's report. Because we all know how busy they are and how long that'll take to get back here. So we're just trying to get away from getting the same report approved 2 or 3 times.
And genuinely, I do mean thank you for bringing this to our attention, because council can't have these discussions with staff if we don't know what's happening. So thank you for bringing it forward. I think that we need to pick it up from here and work with Al and Brandon and make sure that we can create a better path forward. Councilor Breton, question for Mr. Valley?
Yes, if I may, Madam Mayor. John, you mentioned in there anything, and I'm trying to educate myself on this, Madam Mayor. Anything under 10 units or 10 lots is exempt. Like, I'm trying to understand the new requirements that exempt us from site plan.
Brandon would probably know better than me, but my understanding it's either 10 and under or under 10. I'm not sure.
What, units or lots?
Units. I understand units, but we're 6. So
Right.
Regardless, the staff report that's written today even refers to the fact in the body of the planning comments
Right.
that this property will not be subject to site plan control because of that.
Gotcha. Okay, and then along with that come a lot of other issues, like what studies and so forth, I assume. But Brandon will tell us about that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, don't go anywhere, Mr. Valley. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder to receive your deputation as information. Moved by Councilor Van Drishy, seconded by Councilor Breton. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll pass it right back over to you for your second deputation. Which is concerning agenda item 10.2.2, development application, Charles Street subdivision, Waterford, CD 23015.
Thank you once again, Mayor Martin. What we have here is a plan of subdivision in Waterford. This has gone through the public process. We've had the public meeting. It's been fully circulated, and we're here now for decision time. We do run into a challenge here in that late last week, staff provided us with the list of conditions for the draft plan of subdivision. And there are, by my count, some 79 conditions that need to be fulfilled in order to get the final plan of subdivision registered. So what that means to council is that we, as the consultant, have to go around to various agencies and get 79 different letters from someone saying condition 35 has been satisfied, the plan can now be registered. So we have to do that for all of these conditions. We've gone through the conditions because in essence, the conditions form a contract between Norfolk County and the developer. These conditions say this is what the developer is agreeing to do. He's agreeing to clean out the stormwater pond. He's agreeing to rebuild a road. He's agreeing to install services. He's agreeing to all these kinds of things. This is the contract that sets the tone for the development. Our problem is with these conditions, quite frankly, is that many of them are quite outdated, don't match Norfolk County current policy. Many of them are very repetitious and say the same thing over and over and over again. So we could have, in some cases, I'm going to guess 10 of these conditions could be removed simply and replaced by my very favorite condition 38, which simply says the owner agrees to prepare engineering drawings and designs to the satisfaction of Norfolk County and current design criteria, and that all has to be implemented and that it's all of the developer's expense. So a whole bunch of them could be that. There's a whole bunch of conditions here that do not say who is to be satisfied. The developer shall do his best efforts to do this. Well, who do I go to? Just, are you to sign off on that, Councillor, or is the mayor, or is Brandon, or Canada Post? We have no idea. So these conditions need a lot of work before they're acceptable to the developer to bring back here and ask to have the subdivision approved. We're working with staff. We've already had a meeting where they're promising me we can get back here to your first meeting in the next month. So having said that, we would ask, and I've already let the clerk know this, we would ask that the subdivision itself be set aside for tonight and deferred until your next meeting. Having said all that, you have a staff report in front of you that's recommending approval of the zoning. And there's absolutely no reason why we cannot proceed with that zoning amendment. So we would ask that council does that. Now, in the same vein as what we just talked about, there are a whole bunch of conditions on a holding provision, which I'm struggling to find. You may have to stop my stopwatch for me, Mayor Martin. Perhaps if one of council finds the conditions before I do, you could share it with me.
Are you in the bylaw or are you on the list of conditions? It starts on 106.
There we go. Thank you. My kind Councillor Van Passen's helped me out. So we have this. This is page 103 of your agenda. And 102. And it says at the bottom of 102, the holding provision shall be in place on the subject lands and shall be removed upon. And then there's conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which all deal with engineering. It all deals with water capacity, conveyance capacity, stormwater management, infrastructure, blah, 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 traffic impact studies, all that stuff. These 5 conditions are word for word what is in the subdivision agreement conditions that I just spoke to you about. All of them. They're all in there. It would be much simpler, much cleaner, and much more standard practice if those were all just replaced with the holding shall be removed upon the execution of a development agreement to the satisfaction of Norfolk County. And then we don't have to go around and get all these 5 things all cleared and dealt with. So I would just ask that council make that simple amendment, that those 5 conditions be deleted and replaced with the execution of a development agreement to the satisfaction of Norfolk County. Other than that, we're good to go. We'd love to get this zoning approved. We're way past the required timelines on this. My developer's very anxious to get things moving, and he'd love to get a nod from Norfolk County that, yeah, we like your development and we think you should move ahead. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Questions to Mr. Valley, Columbus, and Councillor Hubbard.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Mr. Valley, your company been around a long time and you've worked in other municipalities. Can you share some experiences that you've had with the other municipalities? Do they have similar challenges or?
Similar, sorry, through the mayor, similar challenges in regard to the wording of these conditions, or?
Yes, the conditions that you mentioned initially. Right, yes.
So 79 in itself would seem to be a little bit excessive. We've seen them that high before where you've got very specific challenges and things that need to be really tightened down on a particular project. We're not in that case here. We just did with one with Haldeman County. I think there were, I'm going to say about 30 conditions, right? But the fact is, if we went through and cleaned up these conditions and got rid of all these redundant ones, your 77 would probably get down to 60. I don't want to drag you through all this wording, but we have conditions. The one that I read to you, all designs, blah, 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 of engineering approved by your engineers. Then the next one is sidewalks as per your engineers. And the next one is storm sewers as per your engineers. The next one is drainage as per your engineers. The next one is a traffic study. Well, yeah, that's what the one just before this said. So can't we just clean all that up? And again, there are some things that refer to approvals that Norfolk County doesn't even do those anymore. So it just needs a little housekeeping.
Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Through you to Mr. Valley. I guess my question is, John, did you have a conversation with staff regarding some of these conditions? Would that not kind of typically be the next step that would happen as opposed to coming to council with it, that you would have a conversation with staff regarding these 79 conditions and some of them being redundant?
So we just got these conditions late last week. It was, I believe, Wednesday, late afternoon. I was actually rushed because I remember I was rushing to go curling. I marked up all the conditions. I sent them off to staff. Brandon was excellent. He emailed me back that evening and said he had our email and they were looking at this. There was a staff meeting. I met with staff either the very next day or perhaps the day after. We went through them one by one. Some things we agreed on, some things we didn't. But at that stage, it was, I believe, Friday now. And of course, Monday being a holiday and Tuesday, there's the staff that had no time to react and come up with a different set of conditions. Problem is that a lot of these things don't get released to us as the applicant until just before this meeting. So if there are challenges, if there are problems with the way a bylaw is worded or something like that, by the time we see it and by the time we get it and we make a comment, even if staff is, oh my goodness, thank you for catching that's a typo, it's too late. It's already in process and on its way to you.
I have a question, Mr. Valley. Is it a fair generalization for me to say the majority of the holding provisions and the 79 conditions are directly related to development engineering,
Yes,
not planning?
yes,
So that would explain on your prior file why you heard from Mohammed that you expected, it to go one way, and then the additional comments came in because they came to the report from development engineering, not from planning.
correct.
Correct. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Valley. Appreciate the information again. Leave it with us. We'll dig into the staff reports. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to receive the deputation as information, moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item 7, which is communications. We have 4 communications items listed on the agenda today. Does any committee member wish to pull any other item for discussion? Councillor Van.
Hey, Madam Mayor, I did have a question for the clerk. I didn't want to bring this up before because I wanted Mr. Bell the opportunity to deal with both of these issues. But I thought our new procedural bylaw says that one person can't have more than one deputation at a meeting. Or is it different because these are under the Planning Act?
So I think it's, I'll have to review that, but I think it's one deputation per item, right? He was representing 2 different items. I will look at that, but the intent was per item.
Would you like us to move a motion passing the procedural rules in case Councillor Van Passen is correct?
No, I'll bring something back.
Councillor Van Passen, I thought you were Mr. Valley's friend.
I do believe, Madam Mayor, I said I have worked with Mr. Valley for a long time on a lot of issues, but we tend to disagree on a lot of things. But
Okay, thank you very much. We're back on communication items. So we have Councillor Huffman has pulled Police Service Board meeting minutes. Have this written down somewhere. Councillor Van Passen has pulled, we'll get to that in a moment. That's committee. Okay, so I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to receive communication item 7.1 to 7.4 as information. That includes downtown Simcoe Business Improvement Area minutes, December 9th, Long Point Conservation Authority minutes, January 11th, Delhi Business Improvement Area minutes, January 12th, and Police Service Board minutes, February 8th. Moved by Councillor Michele.
Sorry, through the mayor to council, I believe that Councillor Huffman wants to bring forward an item from those minutes, but I think we can approve the minutes as part of the communications.
So Councillor, same goes for Councillor Van Passen. There's a resolution in the minutes, not the whole set of minutes. Okay, moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? Carried. Council minutes, January 20.
Sorry, through the mayor. So this would be the appropriate time to have Councillor Huffman bring forward the item from the Police Services Board minutes.
Okay. Councillor Huffman, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. The reason that I pulled the minutes is that there was some discussion. There has been a consistent request from community members to have an update through the Police Services Board on the current cannabis situation in Norfolk County. It was brought forward a couple meetings ago, and it was brought forward again on our meeting on February the 8th. I had some misinformation at the time, and I assured the board member that Mr. Milson would in fact be coming to our Police Services Board, our next one, I believe in April, to present to us. But I misunderstood. Mr. Milson will be presenting to council in March. It's been brought to my attention, and I did know this part, that Mr. Milson works very closely with the OPP. They don't work independently of each other. So my question to council is, for Mr. Milson to report to the Police Services Board, we need to provide that direction. We don't, as a Police Services Board, have the right to dictate to staff that they come forward and do a presentation. My question is, in terms of efficiency and the knowledge that is there to the OPP, that they provide their update in regards to the cannabis situation to the Police Services Board, and that any other information that members of the public would like will be available to them at the March meeting that Mr. Milson presents to council. So if I could get a decision on that from my colleagues, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Councillor Huffman. So you're suggesting that the OPP present to Police Service Board, Police Service Board review Mr. Milson's presentation to council for supplementary information. Okay. Teresa?
Yes, and if I can just clarify, the enforcement presentation is happening at the council workshop next Tuesday.
My
Not in-
apologies, not at the council meeting.
Okay, so we don't need a motion to direct OPP to present. That can happen. And then the recording will be available. Can we make the recording available online for our Mr. Milson's portion of our workshop next week to the Police Service Board members, or should they be an invitation extended to come?
So through the mayor, that's up to council. Our procedure bylaw does not provide that we videotape or live stream our workshops, but the presentation material will be public on the agenda. So the presentation that Mr. Milson will be making will be available on the agenda, publicly displayed on our webpage. And workshops are open to the public. Public may attend in person. So if you wanted to extend an invitation to the Police Services Board members to attend that portion of the workshop, you're more than welcome to.
I almost wonder if the video recording it is a better idea, because it's a regular request from the Police Service Board, and as they gain new members, could we then play the presentation from Mr. Milson to them? It's a better use of Mr. Milson's time, although the stats and the figures wouldn't be up to date, but the process, the way that they handle it, our staff resources, all of those things are consistent.
Well, the OPP has, if I'm correct, Teresa, the OPP has the exact same information, is that not?
Through the mayor to Councillor Huffman, I would say that the OPP and bylaw enforcement work hand in hand together. They share information. So of course, county staff would have access to county information, OPP would have access to OPP information, and they discuss and share those in their partnership that they work together.
Councillor Vanden Rishi.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And through you, yes, as long as they're, at the end of the day, the public is informed of what's going on. I think we do tend to get a lot of questions about the kind of situation. So as long as the public has access to that, I'm going to clarify that that mechanism works. Thank you.
That's great. Well, I think personally that someone should move a motion that we record a cannabis related section of our workshop next week and put it online. The public can then see it. Police Service Board could then see it. Councillor Huffman.
I second that.
Okay. Sorry, I can't move that. So you move it and
I will move it.
Thank
Sorry.
Councillor Michelle will second that. Okay, is there any debate or discussion around that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Councillor Huffman. We're moving along to regular minutes. 8.1, council minutes, January 25th, 2023, open and close unless there are any errors or omissions. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes as presented, moved by Councillor Vanden Rishi, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All in favor? Carried. Reports of committee of the whole. We have 2 reports of committee under this section. And I understand Councillor Van Passen would like to pull an item from Resolution 2 from February 14th, council and committee minutes, as he'd like to speak to consent item 4.1 regarding committee of adjustment terms of reference. Councillor Van Passen, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I apologize. I forgot to bring this up at our CNC meeting last week. Resolution 4.1 deals with the Committee of Adjustment and the terms of reference. And the terms of reference are at the back of our binder, along with attached to the bylaw. And if I could draw your attention to page 167 of our agenda, that's the terms of reference for the Committee of Adjustment. I believe that we should encourage the members of the committee to do actual site visits so that they can see the property and see the context around it. And in our new proposed terms of reference, they would have to get approval of the Director of Planning for that. And I would propose that we delete that one line. It's near the bottom of page at 167, subject to approval of the Director Planner prior to attending a site. I think we have good people on the Committee of Adjustment. I think we've always had good people on there. I think that we can trust their judgment on whether there is a need for them to actually drive out and do a site visit. And I don't think there is a need for them to ask for approval. And I would move that the terms of reference be amended by deleting that first section of that paragraph, just that mileage for site section shall be paid for each member of the committee as determined annually by council, and leave it at that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Van Passen. Is there a seconder? Councillor Vanden Rishi. Is there any discussion? Any questions, Teresa?
Just through the mayor to Councillor Van Passen, because the bylaw is actually also on this agenda, can we amend your motion to amend the terms of reference in that meeting minutes as well as the bylaw into this?
Yeah, that would be the intent, because the bylaw is what this is a schedule to the bylaw. And I should have done it last week so that it would be coming here, because we can't change the bylaw at a meeting, right? So if we change it as the recommendation from the minutes, then it automatically changes the terms that are attached to the bylaw. Correct?
Through the mayor, that's correct. But I just wanted to clarify that when we approve bylaws later on, we'll approve the bylaw as amended.
If I may, I would just like to maybe give Brandon an opportunity to speak to why the change was proposed.
Sure, thanks. Through the mayor. I'm not quite sure if it was a change or if that was always there, but my understanding is that that process is in place because the mileage that is paid for those members to go there comes directly from the departmental budget. And so I think similar to other process of staff are going to use mileage, then they kind of get the pre-approval first. So in this case, it's probably just a minor impact to the departmental budget if there's some additional mileage that.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just for clarity, a question to Councillor Van Passen. He does not intend, though, to move the very last phrase from that, whether mileage to and from regular scheduled meetings is not eligible. No. Because you
I'd
said,
just like to remove the part where they gotta ask mommy and daddy first whether they can actually drive out and look there. Yeah, but any adjustment are not staff, they don't really touch, but the council and general public, and again, I think they're good people, they're trustworthy, they're all those things. And I think it's a very important thing to do. And I do understand the budgets. I did talk to staff about this, that, you know, they're keeping an eye on every penny of our tax dollars. They're trying to make cuts where they can. And I'm sure the community investment members realize that as well. And they're not just going to go randomly driving. They're only going to use this when they need to or want some more detail. I know our staff do a great job of taking pictures. They write reports, but sometimes it does take that actual look at it on the ground. And that is just that little bit more. You can see those little details that don't show up in the picture and they don't show up in the back.
Okay, with that, I'm going to, does everyone understand the amended motion? Okay. Moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Michelle. Van Andrieschie, I apologize, yes. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, Councillor Van Passen. Does any councillor wish to pull any other items from committee minutes? 9.1 public hearing committee minutes from February 7th, 9.2 council and committee meeting minutes February 14th, open and closed. Okay, unless there are any errors or omissions, I'm looking for a motion to approve both sets of minutes, public hearing committee minutes, council and committee minutes minus consent item 4.1, resolution 2 that we just amended. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're back over to community development. 10.2.1. Going to pass it over to Brandon Sloan or potentially Mohammed, who'd ever like to kick us off for 210 Argyle Street, Simcoe CD 23014.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I think for the next two development application items, we'll have a brief introductory presentation from our planner, Mohammed. And then I believe Mr. King and Mr. Dickout are also on the line from engineering in case there's any questions. I'll turn it over to Mohammed.
Thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and the councillors. So this is a 0.3 hectare infill development proposal in Simcoe urban area with 6 semi-detached dwelling units. The application is for a zoning bylaw amendment through a special provision that will allow the whole property to be considered as one lot, and the purpose is to have a future condominium development. The public hearing for this application was held on January 10, 2023, and we don't have any major concerns. There's only one concern raised by a neighbor regarding lack of visibility from the proposed driveway of Argyle Street, which may create safety concern for pedestrians of Argyle Street. He also commented that the distance between the driveways of adjacent Norfolk Golf Club and the proposed driveway might be not enough. Staff physically inspected the site in addition to our technical review. The recommendations from the traffic impact study also identified that the proposed intersection side triangle to the east encounters a greater curve in the road. So the recommended clearance appears to be mildly obstructed. So staff recommended installation of a driveway cautionary sign at that intersection. Staff technical review did not identify any major concerns about the distance between the proposed driveway and the driveway of the Norfolk Golf Club. We received all technical comments. With them, forestry staff has visited the site and reviewed the submitted environmental impact study. Staff is satisfied with the recommendations provided by the study. Planning staff supports the proposal to establish the site as one lot, considering its future function as a condominium development. The proposed development is with 10 residential units, and as there were discussion about that, it will not be subject to a site plan control due to recent planning act changes of through Bill 23. Staff would not be able to review the technical details and development standards through a site plan process. A site plan agreement generally provides a timeline of the allocation and conveyance of the water, sanitary, and sewer facilities. So in the absence of a site plan agreement, and in case the construction does not happen for several years, staff needs a tool to verify that the county still has the water capacity and conveyance capacity for all three systems, water, sanitary, and sewer. So the reason staff recommended the holding is because of at this moment, we are not sure when the development will happen. In case it takes several years, we might have a number of new developments that might take more conveyance and capacity. Section 36 of Planning Act allow the county to put conditions on holding that has been identified in the official plan. And I'm going to just state what the official plan says. It states that the council may place a holding symbol on the zone that prevents development from occurring until the county is satisfied that certain conditions have been made, allowing council to indicate support for the development in principle. While identifying the need of the additional actions prior to development proceeding. And at this moment, we cannot confirm when the development will happen. Staff recommended a holding provision with the approval of the zoning amendment to confirm the allocation of water and sanitary capacity, to confirm the conveyance capacity of water, sanitary, and sewer system, and to confirm the stormwater management and servicing design has been prepared to the satisfaction of environmental and infrastructure services. It is staff's opinion that the proposed development meets the intent of the official plan with regard to intensification policies, and it is consistent with the PPC policies related to appropriate growth within settlement areas. Staff therefore recommends approval of this application with a holding as described in attachment A to this report. That's all for this development. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. I'd actually like to pose some questions to development engineering. I think if we can't confirm that we have enough water capacity for 6 units, we're in bigger trouble than I think we are. We should have a broader plan like we have now developed for Port Dover, if that is the concern. So I want to know how, I guess I want to understand from development engineering how we possibly could not know whether we have enough capacity on the line for 6 homes. And furthermore, have we asked the developer, out of all of the things that we ask the development community for, have we asked them when they plan to go ahead with their development so that we can plan better?
Sure, I will try to answer that through the mayor, to the mayor. If we go back a little bit, just one step further, so this is a hold for zoning. There's been probably times in the past where the zoning has been approved, although the functional servicing report has not been provided and the water modeling has also not been actually done. So what we're trying to do now is put the hold on the zoning until they do the water modeling. And actually for this one, the water modeling has been done. So there are no actual problems with the water for the fire flows or the sanitary for the conveyance. So that's just something that we're doing recently before we approve zoning, that we put the hold on it, so they have to provide the functional servicing report, which would include the water and sanitary modeling. With regards to the capacity, with regards to the capacity for Simcoe, Yeah, there was some questions last year, and we went out and we re-looked at our wells. And I think you're all aware that our most recent servicing monitoring report went to council in the fall of 2022. So there are no real issues in Simcoe.
And why is it that reports would come before us without functional servicing? Thanks for the explanation, Mike. Why is it that reports would come before us without the functional servicing information?
I think the past practice, and I don't want to speak for staff that went before me and before planning staff that we have now. When they looked at zoning, they just looked at, okay, there was water and sanitary out front. So it was assumed that the water and sanitary out front was acceptable for the servicing. Whereas if you go through the hydraulic modeling, what they're proposing for the build may not be supported by the water main out front with requirement for the fire flows.
Okay, if we look on page, forgive me, I'm not on the electronic copy, so I'm not sure, but we're on the bylaw for this file, which is page 81 on our agenda. We've got 3 conditions that are attached to the holding provision, and Mr. Valley has come before us today stating that those have been met. Are you aware that those have been met? Has that crossed your desk?
Yes, those are just standard ones that we put in all of our applications. And those are ones that can easily be actually met through an actual by email. So, those are ones that are basically standardized. And, Mr. Valley is actually right. We do have a lot of conditions which are being looked at. We're looking at streamlining them. We have a bunch of ones which say sort of the same thing. They're almost like duplicates. So I agree with them that 78 is probably very high. We could probably streamline that to around 60. But yeah, we are looking at that. It's a process that we're working through with our planning staff.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over for questions of council, but I guess I would use this opportunity, Mike. I know you guys are strapped. I know you're busy. We've approved more resources, and hopefully they're coming to you very soon. Appreciate the work you guys do, but we have to find a way to balance the new provincial regulations and get development rolling here without having to do this each and every time an application comes before us. So whatever council can do to support you and your team in that, please let us know. Please have Mr. Grice speak with us because it's just getting redundant now.
Some clarity on Mr. King's answer there. Apologize for bumping up the line, but you explained how you changed the system a little bit, I understand. So previously, the planning application could be approved, and then they had to do the servicing capacity and the fire flows and that. So potentially, their proposal could be turned down after the fact, once they did those studies, and you're trying now to get them in as part of the planning approval by putting the hold on so they know ahead of time whether the water sewer capacity is there and whether the fire flows are there. Did I get that right?
Through the mayor, yes, you are correct. We're trying to be proactive, and we want to flag it as well. Like if they have an application in for, 60 units, they want to do the zoning on it, and then they think that everything's okay out front with the water and the sanitary, and then we approve the zoning, they go through the engineering, and all of a sudden they're required to upsize or extend the water main or replace it. That would add quite the cost, and it may not have been factored into the original play concept.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Andrieschie.
Madam Chair, through you, a couple of questions here. How are you going to go about taking a look at the situation that we have? And I think it's a matter of cleaning up, as was indicated, housekeeping, cleaning up or rules that are there. Do you have and timeline changes? Is there an opportunity that you will be able to get together, maybe with some of the staff and try to rejig some of this stuff and bring it back, or something that you can streamline yourself? Do you have an anticipated timeline on that?
I can start and I'll let Mr. Sloan add on afterwards. You'll see a report coming to council in March for some additional resources. So we want to hire another firm to do some peer review. They would peer review some of the bigger applications, and also they would provide input in how we can streamline certain areas of our process. We want to look at the requirement for maybe reducing some of the fire flows. Just as an overall note though, and I'm sure you're all aware of it, I think in 2023, we had over 100 pre-con applications. And for the actual development applications, there were well over 300. And all those are looking at by a staff of 3 in Ashley like engineering. So we have a staff of 3 looking after those 300. So it's not an easy answer, but we are looking at additional resources. And I'll let Mr. Sloan add on.
Thanks, Mr. King. Through the mayor, I would suggest that this is a bigger, broader conversation. It is an ongoing topic. It's something council talked about as part of the budget initiative that provided some direction, and also that staff are coming back with how the files are going, in addition to streamlining of process. So my suggestion is to focus our discussion on the file at hand if we can, and whether or not the merits of the application is there, including the zoning, the holding provision, whatnot. I can provide some comments as to my understanding about the holding provision if that's it, but just let you know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, a question regarding the holding provision. So, Mr. King, I think I heard, but perhaps I'm not entirely sure, that the information that has been provided already substantiates the last 2 sections in the holding provision, the last 2 clauses. Is that correct? And the first one is still outstanding, or have I missed something?
Through the mayor, I think you are correct. We do have the reports in hand from our VA with regards to the water and sanitary modeling, and there are no issues with the water and sanitary out front. The other one was for the allocation. And again, when they're ready to go in to do the build, that would be a simple email saying that, yes, there is water and sewer availability in Simcoe.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, but earlier, I did hear you also say that we do have capacity in Simcoe. Is that correct?
To the mayor, yes, that is.
Okay, so just, I guess the point I'm getting at here is that we effectively have met all the conditions for the holding provision to be removed. The question then just becomes timeline. Is that fair to say?
Through the mayor and, working through the new Bill 23, Bill 109 legislation, from the environmental infrastructure services thing, there's 3 things that we look at: water, sanitary, and storm. So with stormwater, it's a little bit more complex. I think they have provided a stormwater review and stormwater brief. We don't want to negatively impact any properties around the area. Plus, we also want to ensure that their stormwater management plan is, viable for the area. So, it's sort of an area that staff is working through as these applications come in now. Stormwater is one that we are looking at as well too, but I think that the applicant has provided that as well too.
Okay, thank you. And I fully appreciate the volume of work that is moving through your department at the moment, and appreciate the work that you're all doing with a relatively skeleton crew. So I understand the position that we're in. I guess I'm wondering if there is a way, rather than using a holding provision all the time, to say, we currently have the capacity provided this is done by X date, or I don't know, some other ideas other than just slapping a holding provision on it and saying no, because it appears as if we're just putting up a bit of a roadblock or saying no to the business. And I'm just wondering what other options are there than that?
Through the mayor, I'm going to have to turn that over to our planning staff.
While we're switching over to planning staff,
Sorry.
that's something I could, thanks, Mr. King. That's something I could also get behind in this particular situation when it's under 10 units. Could we say the holding provision applies after X number of days? If you didn't put a shovel in the ground, then you lose your allocation for your capacity because we have more coming in. But if it meets all of these merits, if this information is provided, let's scrap this stuff and give a developer X number of days to use their capacity. It's not an infinite supply because that gets us in trouble as well when we're trying to make projections, but certainly on something with under 10 units.
Through the mayor, maybe I can jump in to try and assist or even with that last question to clarify. So through the Planning Act, you cannot put conditions on zoning. The regulations have not been enacted to that, so you cannot put conditions on. The only authority we have is a holding provision. In this case, what you're talking about, what I just heard anyway, sounds like it's similar to what would be site plan conditions, which we would not be able to do in this case either.
Are we able to put a holding provision on after a certain number of time? Why couldn't we pass in the bylaw that a holding provision becomes applicable in, I don't know, 365 days?
Through the mayor, that is not exactly the way that the holding provision would work. It's now at the time of the zoning, or it's within the zoning bylaw itself. It's not necessarily a time frame. There may be a different mechanism to look at, but wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in this case. I think where we're at is that we need to confirm, do we have the technical justification for the proposed use and density that's part of the application? I think it was my understanding that the county engineering had the studies, but had not been able to confirm that it's fully justified at this time. And to meet these legislated timelines or into refund provisions, that it's acceptable to do the holding provision to move forward to give them the approval in principle. We have the authority to do the holding provision for these exact matters. It's listed in the official plan of exactly these things. That was the way to move forward. If we're hearing from Mr. King that engineering is in fact now satisfied with some of these items, then I would leave it to engineering to help confirm to us, as we rely on the departments and agencies, that those items are no longer required for the holding provision. In this case, they could go to building permit. And so before building permit, it's very helpful to confirm that the homes can be serviced. So it's very typical to still have that provision to require confirmation of servicing and conveyance before the building permit. And usually the servicing capacity is committed later in the process. And as Mr. King indicated, there have been issues with fire flow and other matters conveyance that have come up later. Once the zoning's in, it's in. So if the zoning's in and there's no holding provision and someone comes in for a building permit and all of a sudden there's no fire flow for that area, got an issue. And unfortunately, we've had one or two files that are in this kind of boat where they're caught between a rock and a hard place late in the process. So I think engineering is trying to flag that early on. Ideally, this is all addressed and done. They've reviewed Mr. Valley's reports. They've confirmed everything by the time we can put this report together within the short timeframes we have. And I'm not quite sure if this one met that condition. But I'll defer back to Mr. King. If we're clear on some of these items, then that helps us out. We're relying upon their recommendation as well.
So before we do that, Mr. King, I understand what you're saying. Believe me, as the former ward councillor of a community that had no water, I understand the importance of knowing what our capacity is before we give out building permits and so on. I get it. My problem is that we're in the in-between phase of new provincial legislations trying to meet timelines, no staff resources to meet those timelines, and we're doubling work for developers and agents. And now this is the second time that council has had a lengthy, drawn-out conversation about holding provisions that mimic site plan control. And my fear is if we don't develop an interim plan, we're going to continue to have these conversations every public hearing meeting and every time we address a file. So it's not to criticize staff. It's not to say what they're doing is wrong. I'd rather them err on the side of caution concerning water capacity, given our history. But we're going to have to find a happy medium here. And so if it's under 10, like we've got to do something because we're going to continue to have these conversations because there's merit in the points that are being brought forward. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yep, thank you. I'll just do couple quick points. So one, just to clarify, I don't think in this case it's doubling. So there's no other development process that would have the exact same requirements. And the second part is that, yes, we are facilitating and working with engineering, planning, and building of having one of our how-to guides and process for developments that are 10 units and under that can go to building permit process and have a streamlined approach. Under that condition, there's a few things that need to be confirmed, such as service, of course. So we're currently working on that.
Sorry, what do you mean by we're not doubling?
To the mayor, in this case, there's no other development application that might proceed a building permit that would be having the same things that are reflected in the holding provision. That's what I meant. So there's no subdivision, there's no site plan, there's no other conditions that already would capture what's in this holding provision. There's only the holding provision.
I suppose in general. Okay, Councillor Breton.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little off course here maybe, but you mentioned 300 applications. Did I hear that correct, Mr. King? Could you just tell me an idea of how many of these would be 10 lots and under, or 10?
Sorry, Councillor Breton, I'm going to cut you off there just so that we can advance this file. It's a good question, but it's not relevant to this file right now. So it's a good question, but just save it for later. Councillor Van Passen, and then I'm going to return to Councillor Duffy because Mike King owes him an answer.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to try to go in that same direction, that we have a report from the planner. Everything seems good. They were waiting for some background information for engineering to check. It seems that 2 of them had already been confirmed, and the third one, the report is in the hands of engineering, and that has to deal with stormwater management. And considering that that site is only a couple 100 meters from the river, water goes downhill, and we have a report that's in the hands of our engineering department that is done by a hydraulic engineer himself. I have pretty good confidence that they will figure that out and it'll work. So if I was to move a motion to approve this by deleting the entirety of condition number 3 out of the bylaw, which is the holding provision with the 3 conditions to the holding provision that have already been satisfied, would the world end and we can move on?
2 things. I think you're stealing Councillor Duffy's thunder because I think he was going after that. Mr. King, can you provide the answer to the question earlier? Are those 3 conditions satisfied?
Through the mayor, I have my project manager on the line, so I'm going to let him try to answer those. I think he's been reviewing them recently, so I will defer to Tim.
Good afternoon. Through the mayor to everyone else. Just clarification on which 3 that you were speaking of. Number 3 being the holding provision that the subject plan should be oh, sorry.
Yep, you're right.
Number 3, the confirmation sufficient water and capacity is available.
Environmental services, sufficient water and sewer capacity available and allocated. Confirmation by general manager. Sufficient conveyance capacity, water, sanitary, and storm, and confirmation of storm water management servicing.
Okay, so number 3, yes, we have the reports that says there is capacity currently, and this capacity is to determine if there's capacity in the treatment plants. Number 4 is to confirm that there's confirmation in the conveyance system, so the pipes that are under the ground. As of today, if they were to go forward, yes, we would have the capacity for this project. But if for some reason the project is delayed and time does progress, the allocation isn't held in a bank for this to go forward 5 years from now. We would have to have confirmation that that allocation is available for that development. And as we go forward in our allocation policy, as we work on that, we will figure out if there's a way to have a slush fund for these small developments. We used to have it for like small infills where I previously worked, and I believe we're aiming to have the same idea as well. As for the holding provision for the stormwater management, where this one came from was in the FSR that was provided by the consultant. It stated on page 4 of the FSR that detailed engineering would be completed in the future. What they provided in the FSR was a brief that said that they were going to limit the flows from the site into our storm system, so that has capacity, but they didn't explain how they were going to limit that into the system. So that's why we were waiting for the detailed engineering to be provided through the hold so that we could approve it, and to ensure that also that the lands were being graded correctly so that the water does not drain on the adjacent properties.
Councilor Columbus was on a hand earlier.
Yes, thank you. I heard Mr. Valley mention that they wanted to proceed this year, summer 2023. So it sounds to me like they're ready to go get the shovel on the ground. So I don't know why the hold up.
Brandon, any comments? I know you're separate from development engineering here, but it appears that there's information provided to staff. Council seems as though they want to support the small infill development without holding provisions. Councillor Van Passing has suggested a motion. She's going to call me out on here shortly.
Just would like to add, when City Nanco, we had water problems in Dover back then already. And they had a use it or lose it system that your water allocation for this, they would allocate enough for 6 units. And I believe it was 2 years. If you didn't start building them within the 2 years, you lost your water allocation and you had to start over again. So I see, and currently in the situation in Simcoe, I don't see that there's a worry about this developer that's been in line for 2 years. They've been waiting. The local developer, the consultant working on it is another local one. I think I can trust them for this great big 6-unit thing, that allocation should be okay. And again, unless there is some great concern on behalf of staff, I'd be more than happy to move this motion, but deleting those 3 conditions and not have the hold on it. And if we get in trouble with it later, then it's my fault, not theirs.
Councillor Duffy.
If that's a motion, Councilor Van Passen, I would second it. And I appreciate that it's your fault look down the road if there's a problem. So thank you for taking that.
Okay, everybody understands the motion on the floor to remove those 3 holding conditions. Is there any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. With that, Mr. King, I cut Councillor Brunton off, and I think some information, if you could send an email to council about, having how many of those 300 applications are small, less than 10 that are not required to go through site plan control. How many more times are we going to be in this situation? I suppose if you can provide some documentation for council to have a better overview of the types of developments coming forward.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, we'll work with our planning staff. They have the carriage of most of those, so I think we can put together a summary within the next week or so.
Councillor Brunton, does that capture where you were going? Okay, Councillor Berry.
Through the chair to, I guess, Mike or Brandon, did we land on whether it's fewer than 10 or 10 or fewer? Did we nail that down?
Through the mayor, I believe it's 10 or fewer. I paid attention in our Bill 23 webinar yesterday.
Okay, so then I just want to make sure that when you're sending that direction that it's 10 or fewer, not fewer than 10, that list, right? Under 10, so it's not, okay. So 10 is not included is kind of what I'm getting at. Is it
Fine,
cut off
if
9?
Staff can confirm whether it is 10 or fewer, or if it is 9 and fewer, and report back, please. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask Brandon a question? Like, I'd like to know, what is and what isn't included in site plan now that it's changed. I really like to know, like, can we get some information on that?
Sure. Through the mayor, 2 quick things. So I'm seeing a message, it's 10 and fewer. Yep. And second, in this review with engineering, planning and building and looking at other municipalities as well and new legislation, there is a fairly long list of items for a development that's 10 and fewer that would no longer be required. And there are some items that would still happen as part of a process. And so we have a chart about that, and I would suggest that when we do the update report that's scheduled for Q2 of this year, to come back to council with a number of items. One of them is an update on Bill 23 and Bill 109 implementation, that we would highlight this. And I'll just give a couple quick ones right now so that we can move on the files. So for some things right now that would no longer be reviewed would be landscaping, building elevations, sidewalk, we would not be able to do a sidewalk amount or provision, or walkways. Garbage, snow storage are some of the items that would no longer be looked at for a file like this. But any file that any development is still going to need some kind of service connection, some kind of road, curb cut, or entrance permit, and some kind of servicing permit. And then there's a few that are question marks in terms of cash in lieu of parkland, etc. But we can detail that more for you in that Q2 report. So there are things that will be streamlined. There are going to be things that just no longer the municipality would have the ability to look at and do.
Is there a document that we can read ahead of time, some of this information?
Why don't we move a motion here, Councillor Breton, directing staff to provide information about those 10 and less, how many numbers we have. Let's get information on site plan control, what it entails. Brandon can wrap that all into his report, and we'll form it up so that we all know what's coming.
Yep, through the mayor, that's all part of that report that
Anyway.
council's already given us that direction already.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're bringing it back.
All right, thank you very much. We're moving on to the second file. Development application, Charles Street subdivision, Waterford, CD 23015. Back over to you, Mr. Sloan or Mohammed.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mohammed again to introduce this one.
Madam Mayor, this is a draft plan of subdivision and an associated zoning bylaw amendment to permit 68 residential lots in Waterford urban area. This includes 23 single detached residential lots, 15 one-story bungalow type townhouse units, 30 two-story townhouse units, and one 0.45 hectare stormwater management block. The subject lands are located in Waterford urban area with access from Charles Street and Washington Street. The neighborhood is predominantly low density residential with a mix of older and new single detached residential uses. There is an elementary school at the south side of the subject lands. The proposal is considered as an infill development with a density of 17 units per hectare, which is consistent to our official plan policies. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to apply the appropriate zoning categories to permit the proposed development, and this includes the existing residential type 1 zone and development zones that will be changed to residential type 1B zone for single detached dwellings, residential type 4 zone, that is for townhouse developments, and open space zone for stormwater management block. The only zoning relief requested for this proposal is a reduced stereo side yard setback for corner units, which will be addressed through a special provision. The statutory public meeting for this development happened on December 6, 2022. The concerns we received about this proposal includes a potential increase of traffic due to the ongoing and future developments in this part of urban area. There are a number of schools nearby, and not all roads has continuous pedestrian connections. Through technical review, it is identified that the traffic impact study did not provide enough information to satisfy these concerns, and an amendment of this report will be necessary. There are a few issues identified during the public hearing, including the proposed stormwater management system and the requirement for a legal outlet. Technical review identifies that further revisions will be required for these reports. A holding is therefore recommended by staff with the conditions that these revised reports, including stormwater drainage and stormwater management service design report, and also confirmation of legal outlet for the stormwater and a traffic impact study update. The holding will also require confirmation of allocation and conveyance capacity of water, sewer, and storm systems, which is the development engineering is identifying as a standard conditions, as we already know. It is the staff's opinion that the proposed application meets the intent of the Planning Act and PPS on the basis that it encourages growth and development in the settlement areas, support appropriate range of mix of housing options and densities to meet the market base and attainable housing needs. It also meets the county's 25% target for infill developments. The zoning bylaw is identified as attachment A, and the conditions are identified in attachment B. Staff recommends the approval of this draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment as described in this report. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Are there questions of council staff? Seeing none. Does staff wish to comment on the conditions of draft plan subdivision as per the deputations?
So the conditions, to Madam Chair, the conditions identified are the same conditions that we're using for, several years. It went through, I believe it went through it. We actually do not include any separate conditions. It generally comes from a comprehensive review. So some of the conditions are common. Some of the conditions might have several, it might be mentioned several times based on different requirements. But generally from previous experience, what we saw, there's most of the conditions are satisfied at the same time. The engineering conditions are almost 45 to 50% of the conditions, and when the conditions are fulfilled, it is fulfilled at the same time. We did not face any major concerns about those conditions, but through our standard review, we are also initiating an update of these conditions through a legal review, and that is actually happening right now. Other than that, the conditions are exactly the same conditions that we provided for all other subdivision applications. And as I mentioned, it can be fulfilled as other applications has been fulfilled also.
Thanks, Mohammed. Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had sent staff a few questions about those conditions over the weekend and was unaware that Mr. Valley was going to come up and question the same thing. And I think that's the answer I got from Mohammed. A lot of them are just standard. They've been doing them for years and they've always done it that way, and they're reviewing it. They're going to make it better. But I do have a question, Mohammed. There is a holding provision in the bylaw. And again, Mr. Valley requested this, and he'd like to approve the zoning bylaw and then defer the conditions for the plan of subdivision or draft plan of subdivision so that you can sit down and revamp some of those that are duplicates and sort of unnecessary, things like that, and come back next month, I'm assuming, and approve that. But at the same time, he would like an extra condition in the zoning bylaw that says that the holding will be removed on the execution of the development agreement. If we were to add that to the bylaw, move that the conditions for the draft plan of subdivision be deferred, that you can review that, bring it back next month, that would be a workable solution to get this project rolling.
So, Madam Chair, to the councillor, this is a very good question, I think. There is a difference between the previous application and this one. We are talking about now 68 unit subdivision applications. It has two parts. One is the zoning bylaw amendment, another one is the subdivision. In the past, we have seen that once the zoning is approved, there might have a long delay up when the subdivision execution happens. It's not uncommon. And that's why the holding provision has been provided to satisfy that if that subdivision does not happen at all, still those condition has to be made. So if the zoning is approved now, the holding will confirm that those requirements will be fulfilled, even if the subdivision doesn't happen in future. If that answers your question.
But aren't the conditions that are listed that are the hold is necessary, aren't they also conditions in the draft plan of subdivision that they would have to meet all of that, get everybody to sign off on? So once that's done, that would also make the holding provisions redundant at the same time, right? I think that's what they were asking for, right? That you know, we'll accept the holding provision in the bylaw, but we want it automatically removed when we meet all those conditions and not have to come back and ask for two separate permissions, one to remove the hold from the bylaw and one to give us our plan of subdivision, right? So
To Madam Chair, to the councillor, from their perspective, if the zoning and subdivision goes at the same time, if the construction happens right after zoning and subdivision application, then the removal of the condition will happen at the same time. So there will be no time delay because of providing these conditions in both zoning and subdivision. But if they decide that they will not go for subdivision, then the zoning will confirm the confirmations of the capacity and conveyance. And if they wait, let's say for 5 years, then they go for the subdivision fulfillment of the conditions, then they can remove those conditions for zoning and subdivision at the same time. So from their perspective, there will be no time delay if these conditions stay for both this process.
but isn't that always true? Like if they don't do anything for 5 years and we've changed the zoning on it, they could sell the property in 5 years and somebody else would buy it and somebody else would want to build a subdivision there, but he could only build what was listed in this special provision of the zoning bylaw. And if they didn't want to build exactly that, they'd have to come back to council and get a new zoning bylaw put in place. And I guess your point is the only concern would be this zoning bylaw is conditional on water and sewer capacity. And if they didn't start building in 5 years, they could lose that. So it goes back to that use it or lose it. And again, looking at the current real estate market, looking at all those things, we have enough confidence. Now, all of these processes are under review by our staff, and the changes from the province are under review, and we're trying to make it work. And, you know, at what point do you just take a leap of faith that say, okay, this developer is going to commit to it and we won't have to worry about it not being built in 5 or 10 years? Or do we put everything on hold till we know the absolute correct answer to everything?
Through Madam Chair, to the councillor, I think the first step is the holding. Regardless what we mentioned in the condition, in my opinion, the holding should have that provision so that in case the subdivision does not happen, still they have to confront those capacities.
Yep, go ahead.
I gotta ask one more question because maybe I don't know how the system works, but let's say we were to approve this today, they go out tomorrow and they go get their water sewer capacity because that seems to be the one, and they get it approved. And okay, then they can remove that holding condition. And then they don't start building for 5 years. They still have it. So where is the difference? Like, how do we deal with that one?
So through Madam Chair, in the holding, we also identified that they have to go through a development agreement. So in case they don't go for a subdivision, they still have to do some sort of agreement with the county, and at that time the county will confirm that the capacity is there.
And I think that is exactly what Mr. Valley was asking for, that they ought to, as soon as they execute the development agreement, that's when the hold is automatically taken off because you've met all the conditions on both sides. Okay, we've talked in a complete circle now and we're back where we started from. So I will stop there.
Either council needs some substantial training or we're missing something, because it's like a chicken and egg and we're going to continue to have these discussions. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the best path forward. It's completely different in this scenario because it's a substantial development, but yet again, it's in a community that we know we have capacity. We should be growing in these communities. We should be prioritizing growth and development in these communities.
And Mayor, I have been monopolizing the time, but I think you're exactly right. We got staff that are trying to adjust to new rules that came down from the province. We got developers trying to adjust to the new rules. Council's trying to adjust to the new rules. And at what time do you say, I want to have chicken or I want to have egg, but I'm going to have something to eat? And you make that leap of faith, sort of like we did in the last one, that, you know what, we got to have some confidence in, you know, the people that live and work in Norfolk County. And before we get every answer perfectly correct to every question that's out there, sometimes we just got to keep the ball rolling and make a decision based on the best information of the day. Might find out later on it's not perfect, but we got to do something.
But I'd rather find out it's not perfect on a development of 6 units than a development of several hundred units. That's where I'm torn.
Well, again, but this particular development is in the middle of everything else was developed. This is the leftover piece, right? It's not like we're starting something brand new that's the beginning of a larger sort of proposed plan. This is just filling in an empty space within the urban area of Waterford that probably should have been developed before we did the ones on the other end and the other end, but it never was. Now you got somebody that's stepped forward and looks like the plan, they're looking for a very well laid out sort of development. It's got a good mix of different types of homes, and it should be make another addition to the community of Waterford that will just make it better.
Does someone have a particular question they want to pose to Mr. Valley, although unorthodox? Was there a question I heard?
Madam Mayor, I would just wonder if we've talked at great length at this point about some of these conditions, and I wonder if Mr. Valley may have a comment that he would like to make.
Is there any opposition to that from council? Mr. Valley, would you approach very briefly for us? And
Thank you, members of council. I think the piece you just referred to, you're missing a piece. I think the piece you're missing is these 5 conditions that are in here today have to be satisfied in order to sign a development agreement. So I've said, get rid of those 5 conditions and just put in there We have to sign a development agreement and then we lift the holding clause. So instead of me running around to 5 different people and getting 5 different letters from 5 people who are on vacation or not with the county anymore, now we can go to one person who administers your agreement. I can get my holding provision lifted and I'm gone. Simple. Simple. These 5 things that are here today as written by staff, those must happen to sign the development agreement. So let's just make the condition a development agreement. It's like in a real estate deal. If I could have conditions about, I want to check the roof, I want to check the basement, I want to check the floor, I want to check the garage, or house inspection. That's all I'm doing. Easy, simple, simple. Sorry to take all so much time.
Okay, so to be equitable, I'm gonna allow our planning staff to chime in. Brandon, go ahead and make a comment. And then my question to you is gonna be, can you please propose a suggestion that council is going to, some next steps that council can find some common ground here on it and give us some suggestions on how we can sort this out.
Yes, thanks to the mayor and to council. So what I would suggest in this case is that this land is already zoned residential and for development. And so this is a rezoning for added residential. It could be appropriate, and I would recommend at this stage that you could have a holding provision with the following wording. Confirmation that a development agreement has been registered for the subject land to the satisfaction of the general manager of community development. Therefore, any development that would happen on that land would need to go through the development agreement, and it would identify and deal with those clauses and conditions. If it's a subdivision, it's going to have cover many of the items that were identified by a subdivision. If they do a vacant land condo, it's going to have a condo agreement that's going to have those clauses that are identified in that holding provision. And what we're saying by doing this is that if for some reason, and I'm hesitant for council to get into the timing of when someone intends to build. Of course, we'd love everyone to build right away, but things can change and land can sit for a while. At this stage, it's whether or not it's appropriate for the land to be residential. And at this case be higher density. So there's a little bit of risk there because of the fire flow and the conveyance issue. However, what we're saying with this then is someone in the future could, if they came in with 6 units, they would still need a development agreement. And that would deal with the servicing, the water, the drainage, the stormwater. And I think if that's what the applicant is okay with, that a development agreement, notwithstanding any development that could happen on that land, that would be a path forward. The other part of it, I guess, is whether or not there's the request to council could refer the subdivision back to staff to deal with the subdivision clauses. If you wish. I think you heard from staff that these are standard clauses, and yes, some of them are old and there's some repetition, and can work with engineering and planning staff to do that and bring something back for March. I would be a little hesitant on that, and it's a little bit odd to do a zoning before subdivision, but it's technically possible. I would also indicate like this, these files, there's a legislative timeline and there's possible refund scenarios. So if the applicant is willing to indicate that they're, we can refer this and work on the conditions and bring it back to the next available council, as long as they're perhaps not going to appeal or seek a refund, that might give us a little bit of confidence. But I think that's partly why we're seeing some of these things come to council. Ideally, you would want to resolve everything before it gets here. And now, under these new provincial rules, there's simply not time. And so you have to come up with holding provisions or other mechanisms to protect the county's interest, which is part of what our engineering staff are doing here. They're trying to protect the county's interest, but allowing this thing to move ahead as the holding provision comes up.
Councilor Breton.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I don't think I'm out of touch with too many things, but site plan, no letters of credit, subdivision, letters of credit. Am I correct? So the letters of credit I can secure a lot of things for a subdivision. Am I correct?
Through the mayor, if a site plan is required, we can do securities or letters of credit.
If
If the site plan is required, if you're
Even
at 10 units or less, then that's a big question mark.
Oh, it is. Okay, well, I won't get into that today. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Van Tassel.
So just a question to Brandon. If I was to move the staff recommendation, but the provisions of the draft bylaw on page 103 of our agenda, page 102, item number 3, that the holding provision would be in place subject to the subject land and shall be removed upon the confirmation of a development agreement in satisfaction of staff. And then that would satisfy.
Through the mayor, and I believe the clerk has the clause on the screen now. And I think you've heard, caution from engineering and planning staff about this. But I think, from my perspective, this is something that, at minimum, would help with protecting the county's interest and moving this file ahead and not necessarily having a duplication.
And then to add to that motion, we would add and further that the conditions for draft plan of subdivision be referred back to staff, be brought back to the next meeting. Get the clerk to add that on.
And just through the mayor, part of this is just like, we have to be careful about whether or not this is like a precedent for every file or how to do it. There's different contexts. So in one case, we have a servicing monitoring report. And so for Waterford and for Simcoe, the two we have today, it's confirmed that there currently is capacity. We don't necessarily have a significant overall issue, but within the conveyance, there might be. Other examples we've had in Port Dover, we know we don't have capacity. So we still might treat each file a bit different, but there's a little bit more confidence on this file at this time. But again, as the mayor said, there's been things that have happened in Norfolk in the past, and we're just trying to make sure that council and making your decisions, that you got the information, you know where we're at, and staff are trying to protect, confirming about the engineering capacity. But I think in this case, we've got some confidence for this. And hopefully I'm not overstepping Mr. King here, but I think we need to move forward.
Go ahead, Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just to further Mr. Sloan's pike comments. Yeah, he is right. The servicing monitoring report says there's no issues for Waterford, for sanitary or for water. However, we have been reviewing many applications throughout the area of actually by Waterford. And what we're finding with a lot of the applications with what they're proposing to build for the densities, that they're not able to meet the required fire flows. This is because it's on the extremities of the system. So they're either required to modify their building types or materials or upsize the water main, extend the actual pipe water main. And also something we're finding recently with current modeling reports is there may be some roadblocks in the sanitary pumping stations as well too. So further review will be required on those. So, for the Waterford area, yes, there's lots of water and sewer capacity. However, as we move through with the functional servicing reports, there are sort of flags on the play where you can't always actually build a large number of units without required upgrades.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Van Passen. There's seconder. Councillor Huffman. Not looking for any further debate. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Corporate Services 10.5.1, we have an information memo regarding accessible street signage policy. Ms. Van Dyke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Sam McFarland is with us virtually today. He is the manager of accessibility and special projects, and he will present this report.
Thank you very much, Heidi. And through the mayor to members of council, good afternoon, everyone. So the report in front of you today is seeking council approval for policy CS 54 AOP number 10 for the accessible street signage policy and affiliated application. The Accessibility and Special Projects Department have received some inquiries from members of the public for accessible street signage. Some members of the public have indicated that municipalities they have moved from have had a similar process in place for some time. Via an application process, county staff will install a yellow sign utilizing the universal symbol of accessibility, along with identifying the disability the resident is living with. So for example, a tab indicating deaf person area, blind person area, etc. Signage graphics are provided in the application form attached in your council package. Generally speaking, the signs are installed in an effort to increase awareness as well as caution in the neighborhood area, while hopefully providing additional comfort to residents and parents of children living with disabilities in our community. The policy and application was completed in consultation with other municipalities with a similar program in place across the province, the Norfolk County Road Safety Committee, as well as the Norfolk County Accessibility Advisory Committee. The policy and application is attached within the report, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that County Council may have.
Thanks, Sam. Questions to staff? Seeing none, does someone wish to move the staff recommendation? Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor? Councillor Columbus, seconded by Duffy. And that's carried. Thank you, Sam. Bylaws. Do we have any council member wishing to speak to any of the bylaws before us for approval? Dip. We have an amended motion because we've changed a couple of bylaws. So, but the following, I'm looking for a mover and, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Columbus.
Yes, I had a question with respect to the one on page 150 of the agenda pack.
Go ahead.
Bylaw 22317. This is with respect to off-road vehicles. And at one time, I thought that we were going to permit if an organization wished to have a one-day rally or whatever, because at one time they asked for all the roads to be opened up to ATVs. And at that time, I thought it was just put off until we got something like this to say that they could have an organized event. So I see Teresa's got her hand up to answer that question.
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus. So while we were working on another file, we discovered that this was approved by council last year, early in the year, but the enacting bylaw never came forward. It was a miss. And so we're just bringing that enacting bylaw forward that was approved by council. I think Bill can speak to it a little more, but this was just a cleanup of an approval already made by council.
Thank you, Teresa, and through the mayor. Yeah, I guess we call this a housekeeping item. Councillor Columbus is right. We did have a group wanting to come and have all or a certain amount of our roads open to ATVs, and with the risk and solicitor advice, we were against that. Norfolk County is, first of all, a single-tier municipality. And as such, with the changes, ATVs are not allowed, off-road vehicles are not allowed on our roads unless we put a bylaw in where if you're lower, they are allowed and have to write a bylaw not to allow them. It's a little confusing. So with that, took off the route that was already in there, and that was by Cortland, that run. And when the group got told we weren't going to expand, they had no interest in keeping them on. So as housekeeping, we're taking that off. So for council, there still is a small section of Town Line Road from the Four Corners of St. Williams down to the Inner Bay that we do allow ATVs from, probably kill my dates here, I think it's December until March for ice fishing. So we left that.
seen as a low risk and able to help the ice machine. But all rest of the roads, no off-road vehicles are allowed. And this bylaw just forgot to get put through after last report.
So due to, I guess, potential liability, even if an organization wanted to have a one-day event, which we had previously discussed, this cannot happen. But the way I interpret it, Mr. Goodland.
Through the mayor of the councilor, we are presently working on that. I think the group is the Beagle Bash group that you've heard about, where they use the Euro bikes, and they wanted that, and we are back in with risk and our solicitor on it. So I think we're going to have to rule they are not allowed on our roads, but that gets past that when we'll come to council. But our answer is no.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Van Andriesch.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Yes, just to reiterate that legally, motorbikes and four-wheelers are not allowed on the road. Licensed motor vehicles, as motorbikes are, but four-wheelers are not. And dirt bikes.
Through the mayor to the councilor. Yeah, we kind of refer to the blue plated, which are an enduro bike, but they are allowed. But the motocross and the off-road vehicles, there's a certain classification that are, we call it green plated, that they are not allowed on our county roadways and our Highway Traffic Act unless council passes the bylaw. And I think the risk and what we've been told, we're going to try to stay away from that.
Well, I appreciate it, and many of our farmers do as well. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishes to speak to a bylaw? Right, I'm looking for a mover that the following bylaws be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. Bylaw 2022-130, bylaws 2023-15 to 2023-18 inclusive, bylaw 2023-19 as amended, bylaw 8Z 2023 as amended, bylaw 11Z 2023 as amended. Moved by Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Van Andriesch. All those in favor? Carried. We have no motions tonight. Do any members of council wish to introduce a notice of motion? Okay, I'm going to kick off general announcements with Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I will be brief to my council colleagues in the interest of time and the weather. But I do recall regarding Amplify Norfolk, it was, as I was appointed to that committee, it was my job to report back on the fun stuff. So I thought I would just give you a quick update as to where that group is at. I do know that we received an email recently from Brandon detailing some of their progress, but I thought I would give you some quick updates. I have had the opportunity to sit in on a few of the meetings of the Amplify Norfolk group, and it's I'm really pleased to see the caliber of folks that are at that table and the level of experience and ideas and ingenuity that they're bringing to the table in order to make this make sense. And there is very much so, lots of great things underway. The two partners for this year, as you know about, are the Norfolk County Fair Horse Show and Waterford Old Town Hall. And each are organizing their own events, and our position in that is helping to de-risk some of that. Of course, the goal is then to include more user groups in subsequent years, and one of the things that Dallas and the folks are working towards is having a grant program that's available this year for events that are taking place in 2024. So in order to try and spread the wealth a little bit more as well. The community week events that are being planned are awesome and will take place all across our amazing community. So that's great to see. I was thrilled as well to know that Dallas is working on some grant applications that can help us to offset some costs in subsequent years, and some sponsorships as well that could look very promising. Marketing is starting to kick into gear. There are some announcements coming very soon. Myself and many other members of the committee have been asked time and time again, who's coming? Just stay tuned. It's coming soon. And they are currently working on bundling the next kind of phase that they're putting everything together, is some ticket discounts, some Find Your Folk vouchers, which will incentivize people to come back off season to take part in some other things that are taking place across our community. So honestly, there's a lot of great stuff happening that will have a lot of trickle down effect across our municipality. So I was pleased to be part of that, and I just wanted to share some updates from that group for this council.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Are you on the inner circle? Do you know who's coming and we don't know?
I will plead the fifth.
Oh, lucky. Okay, thank you, Councillor Duffy. That's pretty cool. Anyone else? General announcements? See Councillor Huffman, Councillor Duffy, Ms. Van Dyke, and our CAO all have a little bit of pink on because it's Pink Shirt Day today, which is very important. So job well done, everyone. I think that I just have one announcement to make. I believe that today most likely is our last meeting with Teresa. She may be back in person, but otherwise she'll be available virtually for a little while longer. So I'd like to kick it off by thanking Teresa for all of her help. You have been a phenomenal asset to Norfolk County. Your ethical standards and your professional standards are bar none the highest that I have ever seen. And I know I haven't been here for a long time. I genuinely mean that. You came in and you replaced a clerk that did business one way, and you came in and ran circles around that office. You gave up the biggest office in the basement with beautiful light and sat at a cubicle with your regular staff to improve culture. I believe you have an office now and it's quite messy, but that just speaks to the testament of the amount of work you do. I see your car here in the morning. I see your car here when I leave. I know that you commute in. You're in the west end of the county. And everything you do, I cannot express the professional and ethical standard that you bring. You bring a lot of peace of mind and comfort to me. I know that you're giving the same advice to me that you would give to another council member around the table. I just cannot thank you enough. You've set the bar very, very high for your replacement and for every other staff member across this corporation. So thank you. Although we didn't get to work together for very long, thank you for all of your effort, all of your extra hours, and all of your consistent drive and work ethic that you've brought to Norfolk County. And I'll open it up to anyone, council members and staff, if you'd like to send her with some parting words.
Guess I'll start off. I'd like to say thank you. It's been amazing to work with you. You've answered all our questions. And I know I'm annoying sometimes, but I do appreciate that I can walk in and see you and sit down and chat. So best of luck with your new intentions. And thank you again. Thank you.
Teresa, you are an amazing clerk and you will be missed for sure. And what I will miss mostly is your communication at all hours. Sometimes it's 11 at night or Sunday, or you're always there to support council. Thank you very much. Good luck here, wherever you're going in your new endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Teresa, I realize I have been here only a very short period of time, but I have been absolutely blown away by the dedication, the professionalism, and the expertise that you bring to this group. Please know that it is extremely valuable and extremely appreciated, and it will be greatly missed as you move on. I am thrilled for you that you're making this decision and making this move. It is the right one without question, and I'm sure that once you take those steps, you won't look back. It will be a great one for you. So enjoy this next chapter, but know that we'll miss you.
I think my first or second meeting, you were doing something and someone called on you. You said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening." And that is something I will remember and be very happy with it. And I remember thinking, wow, she's just like me. But now I realize, I've got a long ways to go before I get there. So I do appreciate everything, and I appreciate your candor, and you will be missed for sure.
Appreciate the professionalism and all that, but I do remember 4 years ago, Councilor Michelle and I almost had a competition going about who would pick out the most error and omissions in our agendas and in minutes, and now you've taken all that fun away. We can't find them anymore, right? So, but I have learned more on the rules in the last, since you've been here, than I have in about the first 30 years I've been playing this game. So thank you very much for enlightening me a little bit.
Yes, just for council's information, you may recall that there were some time ago, Teresa made a request that we all bring in our paper clips and all those big binder rings and all those things. And when she announced to council that she was leaving, the following week, I thought, well, I'm just going to try something. So I brought in a huge bag of these things I had at home, and I gave them to her in hopes that she would change her mind about leaving. So Teresa, thank you for everything, and it is, I guess, comforting to know that you cannot be bought.
You do know those rings are $1 each. Teresa has let us know. I mean, everything that everyone has said, I certainly echo. I remember thinking, you know, new to council in my first term, and when we, you know, had the loss of it sounds like he passed away, but when our clerk that we had left, it was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. We got Teresa. And just the professionalism, the knowledge, the guidance has been, as to use the words of the mayor, I mean, I can't think of another term, bar none. I'm going to miss you greatly. It's hard not to get a little emotional. I mean, it's really hard. I'm going to, and most of all, I'm going to miss your laugh and your smile and your sense of humor. It just adds a whole other dimension to your role, and I'm really going to miss your guidance. So I am so pleased for you and so happy for you and your family. And keep in touch. Thank you for everything, Teresa.
Teresa, you are one of a kind. I worked with a lot of clerks over the years, and I can tell you, you are more than a clerk. You are a walking book of knowledge, for sure. And you've helped me with numerous things. Things have changed here over the years, and without your help, I certainly wouldn't have got moving here at the start. So again, I wish you all the luck, and make sure you send me your phone number wherever you end up.
If I may, Madam Mayor, on behalf of staff, I mean, a little disappointed in council because I've been trying to make Teresa feel guilty for leaving, so I was hoping we could convince her to stay if we all made her feel a little guilty. But this is my second opportunity working with Teresa in the second organization. I worked with her in the previous organization as well. And I can let you know that the sentiment around this table that I just heard was echoed. She was very well respected in the other organization that we worked together with, and she brought those values and principles here with her in Norfolk County, and that's what makes Teresa a very unique individual. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm normally in the office a little bit after 7 a.m. or right before 7 a.m. And then about 10 minutes later, Teresa walks into my office and we start a regular daily update, and we chat for quite some time. So I'm going to miss those morning chats and updates and things that we talk about on a daily basis. But knowing where she is at in her life and her personal circumstances, I'm very happy for her. She's making the decision that I know she will not regret, because life is short, and the older you get, the quicker time seems to pass. And I think Teresa made a decision for her personal life that she will never regret, and she's going to be grateful for it. I mean, I'm sad for Norfolk County. I'm sad for staff that we're going to miss her, but I'm happy for her and that she's making the right choice in her life. And for that, I want to say congratulations to her for having the courage to make that decision. But for Norfolk County, I'm sad to see you leave, and we're going to miss not only your knowledge, your personality, your leadership, your skills, but also, you know, the laughter that you bring and laughs that we often have. So all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, everybody. I was not expecting that today. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm a firm believer that people are successful because of the people they work with and those who are around them. And all of my successes through my career because I've worked with amazing teams, amazing councils. I truly appreciate the previous term of council and this new term of council for having the courage to allow me to make change and to listen and be open-minded to new things. I think that is a really great skill and really nice to have as a clerk and as an organization. I also want to say how amazing this senior leadership team has been. You know, they've been very welcoming since I came in. They're very open to ideas. They push back, but they also are willing to be flexible, and they've always involved the clerk's office. They've respected us, and they've just been a really great addition to my life. We've had so many laughs. You know, they were there during my tragic foot problems and always supporting me and just being there to hold me up and hold our team up. The organization has been great. You know, every department I've worked with, every staff member, again, always open to discussion, willing to look at different things, always challenging me to learn new things. And so I think that there's a second to none staff here. And no matter what's out in the community, you know, this small but mighty organization with the staff that we have is amazing. And people work their butts off here. I'm not the only staff member. In fact, there's numerous that are early at their jobs, late into the evening, giving up their time, dedicated, committed, and they all need to be commended. And finally, to my little clerks team, you know, that's a team that goes, and wherever I lead, they follow, and they're happy to challenge me as well and push me to be better. And we have a lot of great laughs. We have an amazing clerks cheer that we do. We've had a lot of fun, and you guys are supported by a great team. You know, a new deputy clerk who is very committed and passionate about this organization, commuting a long way to be a part of it. Committee coordinators, a licensing coordinator, and, you know, some new staff coming in. So this organization is on to great things, and I'm going to miss it. My heart is here, and, you know, maybe one day I will return if circumstances permit. But I will still be a property owner in Norfolk, so you will see me from time to time, I'm sure, over the years. And just a kudos to Al. I have worked with Al previously. He was an amazing leader at my previous organization. He's been an amazing leader here. And I sat in his office the other day and I said, I didn't think I would ever find somebody I liked more than my mentor. And he's right up there. So I really appreciate him. And I think you guys are being led by some really good people here. So thank you.
If you ever come back to Norfolk, I'm sure we'll find a little closet with FOI work for you to do. Thank you for everything. Okay, we have one final matter that we're going to head back into closed for, and then we're going to be finished for the day. So I'm looking for a motion to enter closed session at 4:21 p.m. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Breton. All those in favor? And we are heading in to discuss Ward 4 property sale update. Sorry, that was carried. Ward 4 property sale update pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Okay, welcome back. Looking for a mover and a seconder to reconvene 4:36 PM in open session, moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Bandandry Sheep. All those in favor? Carried. Staff was provided direction on the staff report and no further action is being reported on this time, at this time. So with that, we are just looking for a motion to approve bylaw 2023-20 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this regular council meeting held on the 22nd day of February 2023, and that the bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and affixed with the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All in favor? Carried. And a motion to adjourn 4:36 PM from Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor? Everyone drive home safely. Thank you very much.